British Prime Minister Gordon Brown and the former US Vice President Al Gore have reportedly been urging Kevin Rudd to back a tough international agreement on climate change.
It comes as the government faces plenty of pressure at home not to take a lead on climate change during an economic crisis. Joining us now from Canberra, our chief political reporter Kieran Gilbert, and he's speaking to opposition spokesman on emissions trading Andrew Robb.
Andrew, Robb, thanks for your time. Can we start by clearing up the coalition policy on an emissions trading scheme? You've said it shouldn't be introduced before 2011, probably by 2012. But now, as I understand it, you're arguing it could be pushed back even further given the current economic circumstances.
Well, we announced in July a very clear position out of the party room that, we should approach this in a methodical and a responsible manner. And it shouldn't be introduced not before 2011 at the very earliest, but probably by 2012, but when it enjoys the broad support of industry and protects vulnerable Australian households. Well, of course, that is very much consistent with the concerns that have emerged in recent months with the financial meltdown and what it's going to do to jobs in particular in the real economy over the next year or two or three. And, we, as a responsible opposition, must take account of that impact of that financial meltdown. And of course the Treasury modelling which has occurred since that decision that we took in July, that Treasury modelling avoided any assessment of the global financial meltdown. So, the government's stabbing in the dark at the present time, and we've got great concerns that no proper consideration has been given to, what will happen in our economy, especially with jobs. And you've heard about Rio Tinto this morning. I mean, what's ahead of us? This needs to be factored into any consideration of start dates, design of the scheme and all the rest of it.
But under a coalition policy now, as it sounds, an ETS, an emissions trading scheme, might not be up and running if the coalition had their way until, say, 2014, 2015. You're pushing it out into the distance without any sort of clarity.
Well, what we have said quite consistently is 2010, the government's timeline, it's never been appropriate. It's ridiculous in the current circumstance. We're only 19 months away from the start date that the government wants to embark on. There is absolutely no sign of the rest of the world agreeing to some sort of deal on climate change, and everyone, including the government, have told us endlessly that, you don't solve climate change with an Australian solution, you solve it with a global solution. Everyone agrees on that, and yet the government is running full speed ahead to introduce a scheme, totally ignorant of what impact that might have on jobs and totally ignorant of how the rest of the world may get involved. It is reckless in the extreme. It is irresponsible, in our view, the way in which the government is pursuing this. And we need to sit back and calmly look at what is going on in the rest of the world with their propensity to engage with any sort of scheme. We need to look at what will be the impact of the financial crisis. This is the responsible thing to do.
There are elements of the business community, and certainly this is the argument that the government makes, that they're going ahead with a 2010 start date because business wants certainty as to how any emissions trading scheme would work. Now, if you do have a lower ambition at the start, a softer start, however you want to describe it, isn't it better to give business that sort of certainty and to do it earlier rather than the lack of a timeline or deadline under your policy?
Well, the business made those comments on the assumption that the Treasury modelling would consider, how the rest of the world might engage in this, and if they didn't, what that meant, and also the economic implications for Australia, of the financial meltdown. Well, of course, the Treasury modelling arrived 5 months late and didn't consider either of those outcomes. That creates huge uncertainty, and we're now seeing today in the newspaper, the Australian Industry Group, Heather Ridout, saying that the government must defer this scheme. Mitch Hook from the Minerals Council saying very much the same thing. There is a growing concern. We've got the Australian Workers Union, Paul Howes from there, making very strong statements about the impact on jobs and the real economy. And for the government to blindly go on with some sort of political political agenda, ideological agenda, in the face of all this is totally irresponsible.
Okay, just finally, Andrew, Rob, the Nationals have caused some headaches in recent days, some divisions in the coalition. What's your message to Barnaby Joyce and the Nats? Or as a former Liberal Party director yourself, can you understand why he's trying to differentiate himself from the Liberals as a representative of the bush?
Look, Kieran, we've had, as a coalition over 60 years, we've had off and on, we've had issues, and we've got an issue we've got to deal with now. This is not an unusual thing, but the fact is that the coalition is and has been a powerful and enduring political force, and I've got no doubt that we will work through this. Disunity is death. We need to, and I'm sure we can find, as we have done on many occasions over 60 years, we've found a way of working together and still accommodating the perspectives and the position of each party, respecting that. So I think it's a matter we can work through, we must work through, and we will continue to be a very powerful force as a coalition in this country.
Andrew, Rob, I know you have to get a plane. Appreciate your time this morning. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Bye.